If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
We are
Trust
back
me.
at
Trust
Mother's Federal Hill Grill. Thurl Nelson here talking some draft, NFL draft with Coach Brian Billick taking over now for the Nasty One. And Coach, I guess first and foremost with the labor stoppage imminent or ongoing as things are, and as you were just talking about in the last segment, the inability to likely get a lot of these guys in and working. First and foremost, I would have to imagine a lot of the issue would fall right with these quarterbacks, and the ability to get a quarterback up to speed right off the bat is kind of precluded in this season, not to mention the fact that the one thing that really stands out in this group is that none of these guys are Andrew Luck right now.
Yeah, but you can't let that stop you from taking a guy. You can't. This group, with the exception of maybe Ryan Mallett, is as unprepared to come into the NFL as any group I can remember. But if you believe in one of these guys, you can't this year say, oh, well, let's don't take him because we may not be able to get our hands on him until training camp or even later. If you believe in him, you got to take him and say, okay, so we'll take a hit this year. We realize he won't be as good because we're not going to have the practice time, but you keep your board the same.
Well, and I would imagine to that end, the guys that have someone in place, we talk about Buffalo right now, that still has something to work through in Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would imagine, to see what they have. Carolina made a commitment last year to both Moore and also to Clausen to a degree, and I don't think we've seen quite enough of them. So in either of those cases, we might see a guy drafted with the ability, a la Carson Palmer, to maybe spend a year on the bench and kind of be groomed. And you would have to imagine that's almost got to be the plan by design, at least for a portion of the season.
Well, I think the draft order this year is very telling because when you look at last year, there were 15 teams that had winning records, okay? 13 of them had quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round. 2 of them, Tom Brady in New England and Matt Castle in Kansas City. So you're talking about, that once in a generational luck of getting a guy in the 6th round.
Same system.
And then you traded for a guy, Matt Castle. So basically that tells you if you don't have a first-round quarterback, if you don't have that franchise quarterback, and last year the numbers were overwhelming, it better come from the first round, you got about a 6% chance of winning. The front end of the draft, the first 15 teams, except for Dallas and Houston, every single one of them needs a quarterback. Now, Detroit, St. Louis, these are teams, Cleveland feel like they've obviously drafted that, so that's developing, so you can kind of take them off that list. Everybody else, I don't believe that Buffalo believes they've got their guy in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe they do, but that's not going to preclude them. If Blaine Gabbert is there at number 3, that's not going to preclude them from taking a Blaine Gabbert.
It would seem that if we were calling Central Casting and asking for the quarterback in this year's draft, Blaine Gabbert, or another guy that you mentioned earlier, although some of the other components may be taking away from him, or Ryan Mallett would seemingly come to mind. The other thing that stands out about the big 2 in this group, aside from the fact that neither is so polished that they, look to come in and take over right away, is that I would have to be of the mind that if you love Blaine Gabbert right now, you can't necessarily be in love with Cam Newton, kind of vice versa. And much like maybe we saw the Dolphins do with a Jake Long parlays into a Chad Henne, who they also kind of like. If Blaine Gabbert is your guy, then maybe the insurance policy is a guy you talked about, Ryan Mallett, Christian Ponder perhaps. If Cam Newton is your guy, I would have to think Jake Locker.
Yeah, you got to be very careful with the idea that, we're going to take another position at the first round because we think we can get one of these guys in the second round, and therefore we get both. The list of second-round quarterbacks in this league is abysmal. It's not a very good-looking list. So you got to be very careful if you think that's the answer. Mike Mayock has had a good and bad effect on me on a lot of ways. But from a good standpoint, and Mike's very, very good, and I do work with him, obviously, with the NFL Network. I'll be with him on Friday when we do the second and third round for the NFL Network. And Mike said it very succinctly. If you think a guy is a franchise quarterback, I don't care if you have the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 8th, 10th, 15th, 20th pick, you take him, period. Doesn't matter where. Don't worry about is he worth the first round pick. Is he a top 10? Doesn't matter. If you think he's franchise. If you don't think he's a franchise quarterback, if you haven't made that determination as of yet, you can't take him in the first round because you'll destroy the kid. Right now, Blaine Gabbert, for my money, is the only bona fide franchise quarterback. Now, having said that, we got about a 50-50 chance, history will tell us, of being right. So, but in my opinion, he's the most quantifiable franchise quarterback. The others, and some will hit, some will do well. but I don't know that what they've shown and all, we've made excuses for all these guys. They came out of the spread. This guy's been injured a lot. This guy struggled a little bit with a lot of different coordinators. This guy doesn't throw the ball real deep. This guy's not real accurate in the pocket, but we think there's a lot of, he doesn't do this, but we think he'll get better. Really? In the NFL? Jake Locker, not a high completion percentage in college ball. You're going to now complete a lot of balls in the NFL. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Well, and much like we started this talking about the guy who's not in the conversation, talking about Andrew Luck and Jake Locker, we might say, is in a similar position, because had we gone back to last year and he changes his mind in a different fashion, then he probably is a first-round quarterback, and maybe for a team that's looking at the potential for another first-round quarterback this time around. But from Luck's position, I guess as a redshirt sophomore, he at least, if he does come back and have a Locker-like performance, he can elect to come back for one final year and likely at least leave with a Stanford degree.
Yeah. But he also ran the risk, and I don't think, God forbid anything happened to him, he was going to be the first pick of this year's draft. Now, we said that about Jake Locker last year, but we never really got to scrutinize that. When these guys, it's unbelievable the way we attack these guys from the end of their season. I think Jake Locker would have come under the same scrutiny and might have, as we say, take on water a little bit and sunk down from the first round like he did this year when he would have come under more scrutiny. But once he got to the end of the year, declared he was coming back, he's kind of taken off the books, and our attentions went elsewhere to the Tim Tebow's and the other guys that came out last year. Everybody says, well, he would have been a first-round pick, like the first pick of the draft last year, and he came back, so that was a mistake. I don't know that we can quantify that.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.